A gray, dark sky was Haru's earliest memory, coupled with the sound of his heartbeat. A few years later, middle school student Haru investigates an abandoned and reportedly haunted building. He is unimpressed, given that no murders occurred here. The only notable thing about the building is that it is old. Haru decides to leave, but on his way down, he notices an altercation between two middle school girls from his class. Rinko tells Kisaki to stay away from her, citing that she looks grim and creepy, and her voice is eerily grating. In short, she looks depressing. Kisaki never meant to be this way, and she desperately tries to salvage whatever relationship he had with her. When Kisaki suddenly looks behind Rinko, Rinko turns around and is frightened by a horrifying face. She runs for her life just as Haru removes his mask. Haru tells Kisaki that he wanted to help, though he apologizes if he overstepped his bounds. Kisaki shakes her head. She's glad that he stepped in. Kisaki asks for his name so she can properly thank him, but Haru says adios and runs away just as quickly as he came. Kisaki is left with a forlorn feeling in her heart. Haru runs as fast as his legs can take him until he can't run anymore. He revels in that brief moment as his muscles give out, and he can feel his heart beating out of his chest. But it's not the same. Haru is a 15-year-old track and field club member with a keen interest in horror. Haru looks at a row of hedges and is reminded of his childhood. Haru once fell off the balcony. He had unlocked the window while his mom wasn't looking, and he climbed over the railing and fell down. Fortunately, a tree cushioned his fall. Though Haru doesn't remember the fall itself, what he does remember is what he felt after the fall. His heart was racing. He felt incredibly alive, and he's been chasing that high ever since. His mother made him promise never to go anywhere he could fall from again, the only promise his mother ever made him make. Haru pursued that rush through other avenues. He began racing neighborhood children and investigating creepy, dark places that anyone else would stay away from. It was almost instinctual for him. The adrenaline after a long run and the heart-pounding thrill of anything horror-related are what have sustained him thus far. However, these were all pale imitations, feeble attempts to recreate that rush he felt when he nearly died. As the days pass, that rush seems ever so distant. 6 months later, Haru enters Nawashi Minami High School. As he wonders if his mundane life will simply repeat itself, he reunites with Kisaki, who somehow ended up in the same class as him. After class introductions, Kisaki approaches Haru and finally expresses her gratitude for his help during her conflict with Rinko. He downplays his involvement, but she explains that after that day, she stopped interacting with Rinko and turned her life around. All thanks to him. After a short chat, the homeroom advisor, Miyamura, comes in and tells them all to head outside for a class photo. Haru hopes to become good friends with Kisaki. During homeroom, the class representative asks for volunteers for the library committee. Since Haru was a library committee member in middle school, he decides to raise his hand, only to end up with Kisaki again. Haru can't believe that, by some coincidence, they'd ended up together again. Kisaki asks Haru if he's interested in reading, and though he says he does, he states that his true passion lies in horror. He recounts that it was by exploring a rumored haunted building that he ended up meeting her in the first place. Kisaki smiles, and she calls it fate. Realizing that she was saying something strangely forward, she waves her arms and downplays what she said. During lunch, Haru's friend, Sakata, calls him sly for suddenly getting it on with a female. Not even he's held a conversation with an actual girl before. Yandere tells Haru that Sakata is just jealous. Haru gets up to get some water, while Sakata expresses his jealousy that Haru seems to always attract girls wherever he goes. Ryuji remarks that it's because Haru is friendly and sociable, but notes that he sometimes seems distracted. Yandere adds that Haru seems rather nihilistic too. While filling up his water, Haru thinks about what his friend said. He acknowledges that a girl coming onto you would usually make your heart race, so it's no wonder that they find his lack of interest strange. On the way home from school, Haru waves goodbye to Kisaki as she boards her bus. Ryuji remarks that Haru's relationship with Kisaki already seems to go beyond just friends, but Haru doesn't know what he's talking about. When Rinko, the girl from before, asks to talk to Haru, Ryuji is livid. Haru glances at Rinko. He remembers her. She reassures him that she's already ensured that Kisaki won't interfere, so she'd like to speak with him in private. They visit the Suza Botanical Gardens, where Rinko explains that she's been looking around the school looking for him, and she only figured out who he was based on his chat at the bus stop. Rinko warns him to stay away from Kisaki at all costs. She recounts that she befriended her in her 3rd year of middle school. She didn't think much of the conversation at first, but Kisaki eventually took a liking to Rinko. Rinko didn't mind, since Kisaki seemed nice and polite, and she found it surprising that she had no other friends despite being so talkative. All seemed to go well at first, but Kisaki's behavior began to escalate. First, Kisaki changed her shampoo to match Rinko's, even though the latter never told her. Then she began waiting for her outside her house, then began exhibiting possessive behavior. Eventually, Kisaki's friendly demeanor exceeded that of friendliness and crossed over into an unhealthy obsession. Unable to take it anymore, Rinko tried to outright reject Kisaki's friendship. She didn't know if it worked, but after that day near the abandoned building, Kisaki never approached Rinko again. When Rinko heard that Kisaki would be transferring to a different high school, she got a bad feeling in her stomach. Haru asks for some proof that Rinko is the victim in all this, so Rinko produces several disturbing texts from Kisaki exhibiting her obsessive and stalkerish behavior. She asks Haru if he'd like to see the photos when they were friends, but Haru has seen enough. Haru considers, for the moment, that what Rinko is saying is true. He asks her if Kisaki would be insane enough to transfer schools just so that she could be with him. From what Rinko experienced, it is entirely possible. She says that if Kisaki is using a series of coincidences to get closer to him, she assures him that these aren't coincidences at all. A shiver runs up Haru's spine. What Rinko is saying is undoubtedly true. Haru asks her why she went out of her way to warn him, and she replies that she just wants to return the favor, since it was thanks to his earlier interference that she was finally able to be free from her. Unbeknownst to both of them, Kisaki is observing them both from the shadows. The next day, Haru approaches Kisaki, and she already has a feeling that he's going to end their fleeting friendship. He brings her behind the school, and she braces herself for the inevitable rejection. However, instead of asking the girl with so many red flags you could call her your ex, Haru asks her to be his girlfriend. Kisaki is visibly puzzled. Though she certainly doesn't mind, she asks Haru if he's sure. He does know what he's getting into here, right? Kisaki warns him that once her love starts, it doesn't stop. When Haru looks into Kisaki's crazed eyes, he becomes certain that this is exactly what he's looking for. Kisaki will surely be able to give him that primal, heart-pumping sound that he's been desperately craving, something that running and horror searching will never be able to achieve. He can hardly contain his excitement. A thrill-seeking boy and a hopeless, obsessive girl. It's a match made in hell. The next day is like any other. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and the trees are treeing. His world has definitely changed ever since he got a girlfriend. Kisaki shows up at his front door to pick him up. Even though he's never told her his address, he asked for it. Kisaki, a psychotic, possessive, and obsessive girl, is just what Haru has been waiting for. He asks her how long she's been waiting here, since her house is in the opposite direction of the school. Since Kisaki has already accurately guessed what time Haru would leave the house, she hasn't been waiting long. Haru is confused. Surely a single day wouldn't have been enough for Kisaki to figure out this much about his life. However, it dawns on him that ever since he interfered on that day, Kisaki has been methodically tracking him for the past 6 months. Kisaki suggests that they head to school before they're late, and Haru remembers that he did ask her to go all out from the get-go. The moment they take their seats on the bus, Kisaki begins her obsessive staring. She doesn't move aside from blinking. Haru likes it though. He tells her that it's a bit embarrassing to be stared at, and she apologizes. It still hasn't quite sunk in with her that they're really going out. On that note, he asks her why she wanted to start dating today instead of yesterday, and she explains that it wasn't right yet. She had some other business to take care of, and it wouldn't have been right to start dating before it was resolved. When he asks her what that thing was, she simply says that she wanted to be prepared. When she woke up yesterday, she was feeling down, so she wanted to start dating him on a positive note. Kisaki remembers that she has some business to attend to after school, so she tells Haru that she won't be able to go home with him later. Haru doesn't mind, and he reassures her that they'll have plenty of chances to do that in the future. Later that afternoon, as Rinko walks home from school, Kisaki ambushes her. A shiver of fear runs up Rinko's spine. Kisaki asks her how long it's been since they've last seen each other, and Rinko says that it was at graduation. Kisaki calls her a liar. She knows that Rinko was watching her get on the bus 2 days ago. You can't outstalk a stalker. How she found out was simple. She boarded the bus like usual, but as she looked outside to spy on Haru, she saw Rinko talking to him. The next bus stop was fortunately nearby, so it was quite easy for Kisaki to simply walk back and follow them to the park. Rinko knows that she's in a pinch. Kisaki definitely overheard their conversation, which means that she knows that she warned Haru. Rinko braces herself for something bad to happen, but instead, Kisaki thanks her. Kisaki explains that Haru confessed to her not long after, and now they're going out. Rinko grows more and more confused with each passing second. To Kisaki, the bottom line is that Rinko tried to keep him away from her. She doesn't blame Rinko for what she did, since even Kisaki knows that it was the right thing to do. If Kisaki was going to do something to her, it would have been yesterday. But since everything turned out right in the end, Kisaki decides to let it slide. Meanwhile, Haru tries to get his fill of thrills by watching a B-rated horror movie. He finds it dreadfully boring. He receives a call from Rinko, and when he answers it, she shouts into his ear, asking him about his new relationship with Kisaki. She frantically explains that Kisaki confronted her on the way home today, and she asks why Haru did the exact opposite of what she told him to do. Haru tells her to calm down. She asks him what made him want to go out with Kisaki despite her glaring red flags, but it was precisely those red flags that Haru became attracted to her. The trouble that Kisaki will inevitably bring is what Haru is after. That thrill. That chaos. A girlfriend who directs every ounce of their being and attention to you is Haru's ideal girlfriend. Rinko doesn't understand him one bit, nor does she understand where he's coming from. She laments that her efforts were wasted, but he says that thanks to her, he learned a lot about Kisaki. Rinko remarks that they might be made for each other after all. Kisaki said the same thing. As Rinko hangs up, Haru hopes that they meet again. Rinko hopes that they don't. Haru looks at his phone. Based on how Rinko was acting, how she overreacted to being called by her first name, and how strange her questions were, he concludes that Kisaki was in the room with her the entire time. Kisaki used Rinko to figure out why he confessed to her in the first place. Once Haru figured that out, he knew he couldn't give a normal answer. But the fact remains that what he said was true. He meant what he said when he said that Kisaki was his ideal. Kisaki is satisfied. She knows how Haru truly feels now, and she could sense that he knew from the beginning that she was listening in. She was afraid that Haru had ulterior motives, but he went above and beyond her expectations. Rinko points out that Haru could have just made up what he said, but Kisaki doesn't mind. As long as everything works out in the end, it doesn't matter if Haru was lying. What matters is that she's his number one right now, no matter how fleeting. Rinko shudders. She's been roped into something terrifying, but she's secretly happy that Kisaki has finally found comfort. Most importantly, that comfort isn't her. Unfortunately, her woes don't end there. Rinko is Kisaki's only female friend, and from now on, Kisaki will be relying on her once more. Rinko's suffering has begun again. The next day, Kisaki asks Haru if she can come to his house after school. She wanted their first after-school date to be somewhere special, since they couldn't hang out yesterday. Haru agrees. When they arrive, Haru feels almost embarrassed that Kisaki is as excited as she is. In the end, it's just a regular house. They enter Haru's house, and Haru's mother, Yumi, welcomes him home. Yumi overhears that he brought a friend over, and to her surprise, it's Kisaki. Haru is just as surprised that the two are acquainted. Yumi explains that 6 months ago, Kisaki helped her out when her bicycle fell over. Ever since then, they'd coincidentally run into each other whenever Yumi would go out on an errand. Haru would bet his entire horror collection that it wasn't a coincidence at all. He's honestly surprised that Kisaki would go as far as going after his parents, too. Yumi isn't used to Haru bringing home friends, much less a girl, and Haru explains that Kisaki is his girlfriend. Yumi is shocked. She never thought Haru would be the type to get into a relationship so early. But here he is, with a real girlfriend and not some Discord e-girl. Yumi is supportive of their relationship, and she tells him to hurry off to Haru's room. This, in its own way, is kind of embarrassing. Yumi pulls Haru aside and tells him to take good care of Kisaki, since she seems like a good girl. Haru glances back at Kisaki. She's already laid the groundwork to worm her way into his life. He feels like he's slowly being entrapped in her spider's web, and he wouldn't have it any other way. Kisaki nervously looks around Haru's room like it's the most interesting place in the world. After all, even with all her skill, she's been unable to penetrate his room. When Yumi calls Haru to bring up some snacks, he leaves Kisaki alone in his room for a few minutes. A fatal mistake. Yumi asks Haru how it's going, and he replies that they'd barely stepped foot into his room before he called her. That said, Haru knows that Kisaki is definitely doing something. She must have her reasons for suddenly wanting to go to his room, though he doesn't know what it is she's after. Haru sneaks up on his own room and abruptly kicks open the door, startling Kisaki. When he asks her what she's doing, she replies that she hasn't done anything yet. All she's done is touch and sniff his bed. She remarks that sleeping in bed is one of the few times when someone is truly vulnerable, or when you can just let yourself go. She wondered if she could be something like that for him, so she unconsciously buried her face into his sheets. Haru sets down the snacks and says that he doesn't really know what to do with a girl alone in his room. Kisaki tells him not to overthink it, so he opts to play a co-op game with her. However, when he moves to turn on his console, he notices that it isn't in sleep mode anymore. Kisaki suggests that they watch a horror movie instead, so Haru digs around for an appropriate horror film for them to watch. While they watch the movie together, Kisaki looks at Haru just as much as she looks at the screen. After the movie, Kisaki says her goodbyes. Haru had hoped that they could have done more than just watch movies, and his mother tells him that what he did was a rookie mistake. In the end, the most important thing is making memories, and botching a home date like he did is just part of this terrible existence we call life. Kisaki understands what Yumi is talking about. She's just happy to be able to spend time with Haru, and she's also glad that they got to meet again. Touched, Yumi embraces Kisaki, which makes Haru a little nervous. However, to his surprise, Kisaki has a look of warmth on her face. He thought that Kisaki was merely buttering up to his mother, yet to him, Kisaki's face of happiness seemed genuine. The moment Kisaki leaves, Yumi asks Haru for details on how their little house date went. Unbeknownst to either of them, Kisaki is listening in. When she reaches the corner of the street, the signal dies out. Regardless, it was truly fortunate that the listening device she planted in Haru's room just so happened to match the electric adapter that was already there. Her only blunder was not checking if the console was plugged in beforehand. Even so, today has been a success. She was able to reacquaint herself with Yumi, and now she has access to his room. Kisaki stabs Haru with a knife, critically injuring him. When he asks why she did this, she replies that this is what he always wanted. Haru wakes up in a cold sweat. Before he can even enjoy the feeling of fear, Kisaki suddenly greets him good morning. He's finally awake. She's been watching him sleep this entire time. At school, Kisaki acts like nothing happened and invites Haru out for lunch. The way Kisaki infiltrated his room was actually quite clever. She showed up at his house early in the morning, claiming to have morning practice for a PE competition. Yumi, ever eager to play matchmaker, urged Kisaki to wake Haru up herself. It was so easy that Kisaki wasn't able to use the excuse she had planned to sneak up to his room. While discussing their lunch plans, a girl named Sakura suddenly starts talking to Haru. Kisaki can't ignore the fact that they're both on a first-name basis. Sakura asks to speak with Kisaki in private, and Haru lets them. Sakura introduces herself as a former classmate of Haru, and upon noticing that Kisaki seems stiff, she tells her to lighten up. Sakura was curious about how Kisaki and Haru ended up being friends, but Kisaki drops the bomb that the two are already dating. Sakura can't believe what she's hearing. Haru up and started dating some other girl who wasn't her. When Kisaki asks her what the big deal is, Sakura starts from the beginning. Sakura has always been the center of attention due to her cute looks and fun, outgoing demeanor. The boys wanted her, the girls wanted to be her. Sakura catches Kisaki dozing off. She wasn't listening. Kisaki thought it would be a story about Haru. Anyway, Sakura explains that out of all the boys she's toyed with and played with, Haru was the only one who never showed the slightest bit of interest in her. Humiliated, Sakura set out to try to make him fall for her. In the end, however, it was Sakura who ended up falling for him. In short, she appreciated his honesty compared to the other crude men who were waiting on her. That's why she isn't convinced that Kisaki and Haru are dating. Haru has always been a late bloomer despite his good looks, and she doubts that he'd suddenly start dating a girl he barely knows a few days into high school. She points out that Kisaki and Haru aren't even on a first-name basis. That's hardly intimate, in her opinion. Kisaki insists that they are dating, but when Sakura asks her if he's ever done something boyfriend-like for her, Kisaki simply says, "Not yet." Sakura smugly points to her scrunchie, boasting that Haru got it for her when they hung out. She brags that she's technically closer to him than Kisaki is. Kisaki laughs. She knows that Sakura is just full of hot air. It was at the post-graduation party when Sakura asked Haru to buy the scrunchie for her as a memento. It was hardly a present. Furthermore, their being on a first-name basis was likely something that Sakura started, and it is extremely likely that Haru doesn't really think much of it at all. Sakura snaps at her, saying that she doesn't know anything about Haru. Kisaki begs to differ. She knows all about Haru. She's been watching him all this time. Sakura is an amateur. Kisaki is devoted. Kisaki recalls Sakura's statement that Haru was honest. Haru is far from honest and isn't as pure as she'd like to think. Sakura has some nerve to call their surface-level interactions a close relationship. Kisaki isn't playing the same game as her. She is single-mindedly devoted to being Haru's number one, and she will accept anything that Haru wants him to do. That is the depth of their relationship. Kisaki returns to the classroom, telling Sakura that her pathetic attempts at intimidating her were a waste of time. Sakura hurriedly calls Haru and informs him that his girlfriend is crazy and likely has several tracking devices to monitor his every movement. Haru wouldn't be surprised if she did. This was something he expected from the very beginning, so there's no point in restating the obvious to him. Sakura concedes and she hangs up. Sakura is furious. How has she been kept out of the loop all this time? Haru runs into Kisaki again, and since their lunch period is almost over, their options of where and what to eat are limited. She asks him if there's something he'd like her to do, but since Haru prefers the thrill of being surprised like this morning, he tells her that she's fine just the way she is. Kisaki was seen through immediately. They truly are a match made in hell. During class, Kisaki seemed to be glowing. Sakata, Watarai, and Ryuji talk about her while changing for PE class, and Watarai remarks that her face was that of a maiden in love. Ryuji asks Haru if he knows anything about this, and he tells them that they started dating. "Excuse me, what?" is their general reaction. Ryuji wonders what happened to that loveless Haru, who wasn't interested in romance at all. Haru replies that he and Kisaki just seemed to click, and Watarai adds that it must have been fate. Haru remembers that Kisaki used the same term. He describes their relationship as a lie turned into a truth. That said, Ryuji notices that Haru seems more energetic than usual. This will make for a good conversation later, as he'll be attending a little class reunion with some old classmates. Watarai is surprised that Ryuji is still hanging out with those people, since he barely remembers anyone from middle school. Ryuji explains that it was all organized by Sakura, and when she speaks, everyone listens. Later, Haru and Kisaki fulfill their library committee duties. Haru notices Kisaki trying to return some books on the shelves, and he helps her with a hard-to-reach spot. Kisaki thanks him for his help, but he says that it's only natural to help each other out. Kisaki remarks that it just feels nice to be in the library. She invites him to visit a public library together so they can recommend each other books, and while Haru thinks it's a good idea, he asks if they can do it another time, explaining that he has some plans with his middle school friends today. All sense of affection disappears from Kisaki's voice when she asks him what these plans are. As his girlfriend, he should take priority over anyone and anything. Haru tells her that he always used to be bored. He never expected much from his day-to-day life, but now he sees that even the little moments can be things worth treasuring. He tells her that meeting her has opened up his world, but because she means so much to him, he wants to value other parts of his life too. Kisaki glares at him and asks him to repeat that. In the end, Haru is simply choosing his friends over her. She should be number one and nobody else. This isn't rocket science. The final bell rings and Kisaki snaps out of her trance. She ultimately allows Haru to hang out with his friends, and she leaves the library by herself. Haru hangs out with his middle school friends, and they have a blast. Watarai gives a thumbs up, pretending that he was part of this friend group the entire time. Sakura heads to the back of the crowd and tells Haru that if he ever needs anything, she has his back. Suddenly, Haru receives a text from Rinko asking to talk. Meanwhile, Rinko and Kisaki have a little strategy meeting. After a tense moment with Haru, Kisaki sought out Rinko's help. Rinko contacted Haru directly to talk, and for some reason, they're now in a karaoke bar. Haru asks her if she wants to sing, but he clarifies right after that he's just joking. They're here to talk, but he sees no point in coming here if she'll just tell Kisaki everything right after. This whole thing is obviously set up, and Haru is uncooperative. Rinko cuts him off. She doesn't care if Kisaki is using her, or if he suspects Kisaki of doing so. The bottom line is that when she met with Kisaki earlier, she had a greatly troubled look on her face. She asserts that she is here of her own free will. Haru agrees to do a sit-down, and they discuss his interaction with Kisaki earlier. While normally Haru would be justified in turning down Kisaki, Rinko points out that their relationship isn't normal. Haru knew what he was getting into when he started dating Kisaki, but that isn't the full truth. Haru tells Rinko that he wants to be the person that Kisaki hates the most. Understandably, Rinko is confused. Haru wants to experience the full range of Kisaki's emotions. He wants to be loved, but at the same time, he wants to be hated, even if it means being swallowed up by Kisaki's darkness. Haru's sure that Rinko knows what he's talking about, since she is technically Kisaki's ex-girlfriend. Rinko shakes her head and says that they were just friends, but the specifics don't matter to Haru. The point he's trying to make is that they're both the same. What Kisaki wants from him and what she wants from Rinko are the same. He asks her if there's anything that she can tell him about Kisaki that left an impression, so that he has an easier time dealing with her. Rinko sits in silence and thinks back. She's pretty was Rinko's first thought when she met her. Their eyes met, and before she knew it, they were already talking to each other. One day, Kisaki suddenly pulls Rinko aside and asks her if she can be her number one. Rinko remembers that Kisaki said the same thing about Haru. She shares this information with him, and he decides that he'll have to fight it out with her, not fight in the literal sense, obviously. Normally, Haru just smiles the problems away, but now he knows that he has to fight fire with fire. She asks him if this will help Kisaki, and Haru is amused that she started calling Kisaki by name and not that girl like before. Kisaki admits that deep down, she still considers Kisaki her friend, and she still wants her to be happy, no matter how twisted that happiness is. In a sense, she too has been swallowed up by Kisaki's pressure. Right now, she wants to at least try to face her again. In the end, she allows Haru to do what he thinks is right, and if he thinks that this is better settled between just him and Haru, she has no objections. Haru knows what he must do, and even though it's a gamble, this is his way of dealing with her. Haru meets with Kisaki on the school roof, and he tells her that he wants to break up. Whenever Kisaki meets someone for the first time, she can tell by looking into their eyes that she'll never be their number one. When she met Rinko, that changed somewhat, and she firmly believed that this time, she could be her number one. But things didn't turn out this way. Rinko shunned her and rejected her. She couldn't take all of Kisaki's feelings. Is Kisaki wrong for wanting someone to love her as much as she loves them? When she met Haru and saw how empty his eyes were, she thought that this was it. His eyes screamed that he never let anyone get too close to him. Maybe this time, she could be his number one. This time, for sure. Back in the present, Kisaki is rejected yet again. She knows that it's hard for people to accept her for who she is. That's why Rinko rejected her. This time, she thought that if she just acted normally, things would work out. Haru confessed to her after learning she was twisted. That's why she trusted him. That's why she had hoped that he'd only have eyes for her. She asked him why she isn't his first priority. She asked him what he means by "let's end this." She asked him why he had to get his hopes up. Kisaki tells him that he should have just rejected her from the start. Haru apologizes to her. He never should have tried to act like they were a normal couple. He admits that he never felt any sort of romantic attraction to her. He only thought that her erratic, unpredictable behavior would satisfy his boredom. He wanted to think of a way to get her to stick around, which is why he decided to confess to her. He thinks it's time to end this rushed relationship and to make her his number one for real. He tells Kisaki not to hold back on his account. He can take it. He can endure whatever she throws at him. To him, that's what it means to be number one. He doesn't know how this relationship will turn out, but if Kisaki is okay with a twisted connection like this, then Haru would like to ask her out again. Their relationship is not normal in the slightest, but he's sure that neither of them care about that. Kisaki wipes away her tears. It appears she was wrong all along. She now understands what he means. She hopes that Haru doesn't regret this because from now on, she'll never leave him, no matter what he says. The two make up, if you can call it that. Kisaki decides that she just has to make him fall in love with her. She's going to make him her slave, whether he's ready or not, and whether he wants to or not. Haru tells her to bring it on. Haru extends his arm, explaining that this is what Rinko called a declaration of intent. This is a new chapter in their relationship. As they shake hands, Kisaki remarks that this is the first time she's touched him since they met. At that moment, Haru didn't know how to explain what he felt, but he knew for sure that something had struck his heart. Hopefully, it wasn't a knife. Haru is sprawled out on a bed, with his wrists and ankles handcuffed to the edges. To his right is Kisaki, standing smugly over him. How did things end up this way? A few days prior, Haru and Kisaki were at a cafe, talking about their plans for Golden Week. Kisaki would like to go to a haunted house or take a trip to some haunted place, but Haru tells her that they don't always have to accommodate him. For once, they can do something she wants to do. However, what Kisaki wants is to see him happy, and in that sense, perhaps she wants to be the one to scare him instead. Haru is morbidly curious about what Kisaki is capable of, and she asks him how far she's allowed to go. Haru tells her to go all out, and that's how he ended up handcuffed to a bed. Haru waits to see what Kisaki's next move is, but all she does is ask him how scary it is to be unable to move. It dawns on Haru that Kisaki has nothing planned. He asks her about the room, hoping that there might be some creepy story behind it, but she says that it's just a vacant room left behind by her older sister. Haru feels like a fool for getting his hopes up, but suddenly Kisaki climbs on top of him and does something really scary. She removes Haru's handcuffs and tells him to get changed with some loungewear that she brought him. In the meantime, she'll head down to get some drinks. Haru is confused as to where this sudden hospitality came from. He thought that she would have done something like remove his clothes and watch him all day, but even Kisaki thinks that doing something like that is too bold. They only started holding hands, and she wants to take these kinds of things slowly. How can someone be so pure but so psychotic at the same time? Haru changes into the clothes prepared for him, but he is admittedly disappointed. He was expecting something more out of this. He notices something sticking out of the closet, and when he opens it, a stuffed dummy of him falls out. He pokes and prods at it, and he notices that there seems to be a rope around its neck. Haru wonders if Kisaki is going to do the same to him. He can't wait. Suddenly, Kisaki knocks on the door and asks if she can come inside. After a few seconds of silence, Haru tells her to go in. Kisaki sets down the tray of snacks on the table, but as she turns around, she realizes that Haru has discovered her Haru doll. Haru doesn't even pretend that he didn't. Kisaki sighs. All her plans are ruined now. When he asks her what she means, she apologizes. He already found the doll, and that's all it was there for. After being told to give it her all, she wanted to really try and do something spectacular. That's why she bought the doll to practice rope tying with, especially since her parents would be home late today. She tried all sorts of knots and torture methods from his favorite movies, but she realized that it'd just be a pale imitation of old ideas. There'd be no thrill from something like that, and there'd be no point in her doing it either. As a last resort, she planned to have him find the doll strangled with rope and hope that his own imagination would scare him, but she had nothing else to follow up on. She's sorry for letting him down, but Haru appreciates the effort she put into trying to scare him. He can tell that she really cares, and more importantly, she shares his distaste for pale imitations. Haru asks her if there's anything else that she wants to try, and he offers to help her in any way he can. Kisaki asks him to just stay in this room. That's all she wants. Haru raises an eyebrow, but he does as he is told. Haru paces around the room, and for the next few hours until sunset, Kisaki just sits there motionless, menacingly staring at him. When it is time for Haru to go home, he asks her if this is all she really wants. She replies that just being here with him is the best she could ever ask for. Haru returns home, and his mother tells him that he should have just spent the night. She's way too supportive, even as far as liberal parents go. Yumi understands what he means. He had a lot of fun, even without staying over. Haru runs up to his room, calls Rinko, and tells her all about what happened today. He gushes over Kisaki's earnest awkwardness, and even though Rinko would love to be supportive of him, she just really doesn't understand what he's talking about, and this is such a strange thing to gush about. Miyamura announces that they'll be switching desks today by using a lottery box to decide. Haru reaches into the box to grab a random number, and through sheer coincidence, he ends up next to Kisaki. Wadare reads his mind, remarking that this seems far too convenient to be a coincidence. Haru decides that there's no point in overthinking it. Later, while Haru's friends talk about the upcoming softball matches, Haru observes Kisaki standing up and going outside with a paper bag. Kisaki brings the bag, which contains limited edition idol merchandise, to Miyamura. He can't thank her enough. There's no telling what would happen if someone saw him buying the Magical Valkyries Cute and Beat album merchandise. Kisaki thanks him for rigging the seating arrangements. All it took was a false bottom and a prepared number. As she leaves, Miyamura asks her not to tell anyone else about this or their interest. Kisaki never planned to from the start, and she thinks that Miyamura just wants to tell himself that he's been blackmailed. Miyamura wonders how she found out in the first place. Meanwhile, Toru asks Kai if he's really going to do it. Kiichi really is going to do it. He's going to accidentally throw a bad pitch and hit Haru in the face. It's bad enough that Sakura likes him, but it's even worse now that he's dating someone else. Kiichi doesn't plan on hitting him in the head, but he doesn't mind paying his medical bills either. He's just so angry at Haru that he wants to inflict a little pain, that's all. Toru can't believe how stupid his reasons are. Kisaki asks them just what they're talking about. She repeats a few lines from Kiichi's tweets from his online handle Orange Mochi, showing that he holds a grudge against a certain someone. Kiichi asks her if she's insinuating that Orange Mochi is him, and she replies that with enough information, it isn't hard to track down who people are online. She's an expert at that. Phones are smart, but you need to be smart too. Kisaki starts reciting one of Kiichi's old, embarrassing poems he wrote in middle school, and Kiichi begs him to stop. He promises not to do anything as long as she stops making him relive these painful memories. As he runs away, Toru asks her what the next line in the poem is. During the softball game, Kiichi's pitches don't have their usual edge out of fear of hitting Haru. Haru recounts this to Kisaki, who pretends not to know what caused Kiichi to be afraid in the first place. When Kisaki's bus arrives, she says goodbye to Haru, who knows that she'll be messaging him non-stop tonight until he picks up. Haru is too deep in their relationship to complain now, but he tells her that there are times when he is literally unable to pick up the phone, so he asks her to hold back. He remarks that phones are smart, and she needs to be smart herself. Kisaki laughs. It's the same thing she said earlier. They really are a match made in hell.